Whew, welcome to this week's edition of the Mental Health Vlog. And honestly speaking, unlike other vlogs where I was really feeling in the moment that I wanted to talk about a certain particular facet of my mental health, I think this time I just want to give a bit more of a rounded version of why I'm at this level. Because honestly speaking, I did not think I'd make it almost 45 years with the way my mind is sometimes. Sometimes I feel like the fact that I am still here is either A, because I'm stubborn, B, because I have that good balance of meh, whatever, to counter the dark thoughts that sometimes creep up when I'm feeling, manic or having a really bad low. I think it's my age. Honestly speaking, we were talking about Gen X on Twitter, and I know that for some, because I was born in the late 70s, I am on the spectrum of millennial, but no, I'm definitely Gen X. I've been alive long enough to see the world change in rapid ways, to watch things that I was used to being the future becoming obsolete. I mean, I still have CD-ROM stuff because it feels like I didn't get enough time to enjoy my disc before everything went digital. The world really changed for me in so many ways. We went from being an introvert that had to deal with outside stuff like camping and hunting and hiking and stuff to being able to be an introvert indoors, but still having the skills to where if I have to be outside, I can handle it. I feel like I've been a caretaker for most of my freaking existence. Being young and having a lot of responsibility heaped up on your shoulders, taking care of your siblings, taking care of the house, taking care of your mom sometimes when she didn't have it together. Some of the things that I did as a kid that I thought was normalized, that when you get older and you realize that you're not supposed to be a lookout on heist as a child. You're not supposed to sit in the car and watch out for the cops or look around the neighborhood to make sure that nobody's coming. That's not normal, but it was a lot of what I processed now that I'm older and realize my life was kind of crazy, and it kind of makes sense why I have such a antisocial personality and why my personality disorder makes more sense to me than it would somebody considered normal. And in this world, honestly speaking, I'd rather be this way than what people consider normal, because normal people seem very angry to me. Normal people seem like they can't be happy unless everybody around them acts like them. And I just don't want that normality. Honestly speaking, life is tough enough without having to be a part of a big group of people who just want me to act a certain way, praise them when they really aren't doing praiseworthy things, and just this weird sheep like herd mentality that has never interested me since I can remember. I think being a Gen Xer, there are times where I feel both physically and emotionally tired too. And it's not to say that I have it harder than other generations. That's bullshit. I realize that everybody alive has their good, bad, and in betweens. I just feel like my generation feels invisible sometimes. People call me boomer, and it's like I don't give a fuck if you think I'm old enough to be a boomer anymore. Who cares? I was raised around boomers. The funny thing is, I had more influence from silent generation relatives than my boomer parents, who both of them were very immature, had way too many kids too young, and didn't really want to be parents. And I feel the negative impact of that. Having parents who were really hands off, who only came in to discipline, who overly disciplined sometimes, but there were fun times as well. I was thinking about how, some of the chores we probably shouldn't have did it this way, but I remember in the market homes especially, mopping the floors meant completely saturating the floors with soap and water and then throwing down good towels and then pretending like we were ice skating because we were kids. And if you're going to make me clean an entire house and I'm in elementary school, I'm going to make that shit fun. I remember being a latchkey kid, having to wear a key around my neck just to get in and make sure that I didn't lose that key. But every once in a while, you either forgot it or you did lose it. So you learned how to get in that window. You learned which door you can possibly leave unlocked and not risk the house being burglarized. I remember having to be in before the lights were out when my mom was home, and then being able to be out till 4 in the morning with my cousins when she was out during the weekends in Party Central. I remember being out late nights at an age where I probably should have been in bed getting sleep, but insomnia was a big thing for me when I was young, and it's still a struggle that I deal with. The lack of sleep really does set off a chain reaction of both bad mental moods and physical health for me. But I've been that way since I was little, up till 4 a.m. watching things like uh, oh my gosh, I just had it. The Twilight Zone and Star Trek and other shows that most people take for granted now. The Outer Limits. I was a total horror and sci-fi junkie because I was up late anyway. And I know now that those things probably contributed to a lot of the issues that I had with my mental health. But, when you're a kid and you don't have that constant supervision and positive influence, you just develop what you can. And I love that TikTok that explained how a lot of us Gen Xers with mental health, because we weren't diagnosed with those things. Mental health wasn't really talked about. If you were too crazy, you got either locked away or put in jail or killed. So we didn't have hospitals that looked out for us. We didn't have medications that helped us, and I don't trust them all the time. I'm doing a lot better with it now that I'm older, but in my 20s when it was really bad with the delusions and non-lucidity, I did not want any parts of medication. I didn't want the label. Even being called an introvert was kind of off-putting to me at first. And then I embraced it when I realized that it was one of those few labels that really described how I feel about people in general. I don't hate humanity. I just don't want to be bothered with the most of you. And I think the thing that bothers people about introverted, especially Gen X introverts, is that y'all think we're cool to hang around, and for the most part we try to be. We just want to live our lives. We've spent so much of our lives hearing how the world's going to end, all that nihilistic bullshit. We've dealt with the nuclear drills. We've seen Russia as the enemy, so what they're doing in the Ukraine is par for the course for those of us. I mean, literally had movies like Red Dawn. But we also had to deal with a rapidly changing society that had norms that were cruel, that were accepted. Like bullying was an accepted norm. So much so that Hollywood made a fucking trilogy of movies about Revenge of the Nerds, which also had a lot of problematic leans towards women. I feel like the stuff that I had to unlearn was so condoned in society back in the day. And people are still trying to drag us back to those days because for them, they were on top. Making fun of somebody for being too smart or ugly or fat or whatever superficial flaw they want to highlight on. Their sexuality especially was a punching bag for these types, and it's exhausting. And I'm glad that we are getting to a point where that shit's not acceptable anymore. But you have to understand that there are people that are fighting tooth and nail, even in my generation, for it because they thought they were on top. Gen Xers aren't immune to being assholes. We're just cooler at being assholes. And I don't say that for just a pat on the head. I just mean, honestly speaking, I would rather hang out with an asshole from my generation because at least we can commiserate on stuff. One of the things that my thread on Twitter showed me is even the ones with conservative leans had to agree with the lack of trust in authority because we didn't have that, the lack of supervision, having playgrounds and other areas that were a literal danger to us being the norm. Everything smelled like smoke and hairspray. On top of that, a lot of us share the same experience about having hands-on but not shunning technology. I love the digital age. I love that I have books online and music online. But I also love having the physical copies of those things because I don't trust the system. And I'm just waiting for us to make that big mistake again, which I thought was going to happen with Orange Julius as our fucking president, that we were going to have grid issues. And I am grateful now that I had those family members that believed in that off-grid life, that believed that kids should go camping and learn survival skills and learn things like how to shoot and stuff like that. I'm fortunate that I had that ability to learn how to sew and cook and do things by hand and not rely so heavily on devices, but also have devices as backup. That is the thing that I think as a Gen Xer, even with mental health issues, I really love about existing in the time I was born. Because even though it was overwhelming, all the changing, I just roll with it, you know? And I realized that I need both. I need to be able to do things with my hands and write out stuff when I need to physically write it out, but I also need to be able to cut things, sew things, put things together with my hands and not rely so heavily on digital means. I also sometimes just like sitting with a book in my hands, opening it up, looking at the pages. Just as much as I like sometimes looking on my computer or looking at my tablet and reading a passage as well. It just depends on my mood. And I'm grateful that we have that ability now to have the variety for that. But what I will say, going through this journey that wasn't easy, was the stubbornness. Because I had to rely on myself so much, asking for help is the worst. It is so hard for me to break down and say, I need, whether it's help with work issues or personal issues and definitely financial issues. Having my own back is both a blessing and a curse. And I think a lot of us have gone through that. Also, my house wasn't conventional for the longest time. Having to take care of both an elderly parent and a child and having both of them have issues was tough. I am fortunate now that for now we are no longer in that situation and it's just Greg and I taking care of kiddo. But we are in times where we don't know whether or not we'll be taking in elders again. And we stay in constant contact with his family because of those issues. So it is a reality for a lot of people in my generation to have multiple generations in your home, whether you want that situation or not, because you have to look out for each other normally. But for me, I had to also learn how to distance myself because as much as I wanted to be helpful, I couldn't step in that role mentally or physically anymore to be the caretaker for an adult person. And that's the reality, and that is a struggle for a lot of us, especially in my community, because you're taught from the get-go, if you're the oldest, you're the responsible one. But I feel like I've been the responsible one for so long. And I always question, when was somebody going to be responsible for looking out for me? I hate to sound needy about that, but it just felt like I've always been people's mom or person they lean on for whatever they need, the problem solver, and it gets exhausting. And I think that leads to a lot of why I don't socialize too heavy, why I'm very careful with who I socialize with, and why I close off when I feel like people are siphoning the limited amount of energy I have for friendships or anything. I can come across as very closed off. I realized as I was setting up the studio, my partner came in to help me put things together. And the way I looked at him, like, what are you doing? Well, it aggravated me because I'm so used to doing things myself. And he tries so hard to help me with things. And he's not used to my nature of, I've got this. And I'm not used to his nature of, let me help. So it has been a learning process, and he'll be here for almost a year now that we officially made it official living together, and it's a lot of growing pains for me because I am so used to doing things for myself without anybody's help, without a lot of input, because that's the way life has had to be for me. So it really has become an adjustment, but one that I feel like in time and once I push past a lot of the stubbornness will get through. I think all in all, the generational fighting is dumb. We're all human beings. We're all capable of great good and great evil. I think there's a lot of us just in between trying to survive. I honestly think that with mental health, it is a struggle against a lot of shit that I feel is just dumb and a waste of time. I feel like a lot of the forced societal norms are exhausting. That's why I don't indulge in them. I think there's a lot of people that feel this way too. That's why so many cultures have those people that are like, oh, they never leave the house. They don't want to interact with humans. Yeah. Why should we? When constantly put down for just being who we are, constantly told that our seeking of knowledge makes us weird, or anything that just doesn't mold yourself to whatever weird, fake ass, fraudulent popularity chasing bullshit. I have no interest in that. And I think a lot of people in my generation just feel that way. We're just trying to be, and we just want everybody else to be around us, just live, you know. But I just wanted to do a more, I can't even say lighthearted, so I hope that you got a bit of a chuckle about me talking about going on heist and, being Gen X just meant my childhood was a bit weird. I know I had a childhood, but it felt like a lot more adult stuff was thrust upon me way earlier than it should have, and it kind of molded me into this kind of husk of a cynical person that is still shocked that I'm here after over 4 decades, and wondering if I'm going to be here for another four sometimes, because we're losing people left and right. you know Bands are the worst for that. Losing Taylor so soon, 50 is not that far away from me, so my brain goes, wow. You're constantly reminded of mortality in my generation more so than I thought possible. And it's like even things you want to look forward to, like space exploration. My first viral historical moment, the first thing that I can remember where I was on that day because of the way they handled it, was the Space Shuttle Challenger. Watching what I thought was an explosion, because all we seen was smoke and kind of sparks of flame in the sky before they turned the TV off, rolled it out of their classroom, and acted like we didn't just see something horrific. I feel like all my life I've been dealing with people who, they either don't want to talk about an issue, they downplay an issue, or they completely avoid it. And it's just made me not trust a lot of people, not trust in this current system, especially. And I think that plays upon a lot with my schizophrenia and everything else. I do not trust people. And it takes a lot for me to trust people. And once I do trust you, it doesn't take that much to keep that trust from me. But once it's gone, there's no getting it back. And I think a lot of people find that out the hard way. I would rather burn a bridge, pretty much destroy a bridge, and not risk being hurt again, than let anybody continue to harm me both physically or mentally anymore. I have had enough times touching the hot stove to know it will burn you. So I am not going to deal in interpersonal stuff that I feel would cause me unnecessary pain. And I think that for some people isn't normal. Some people think it's because of the sociopathy. I think it's a lot of people are just tired. Why should I function in a society that wants to devalue, dehumanize, and hurt me when I can insulate myself keep my mental health as whole as I can without the pressures of other people's BS. But I'm starting to get into way too philosophical. It's about 10 minutes out. I'm about to do a Bonnet Chronicles anyway, so I might speak more on this, on that. I just really wanted to, just talk about the generational thing without it being, oh, we're better than. Because honestly speaking, I didn't get that vibe at all talking about Gen X things. I think a lot of us just wanted to commiserate. And of course, there were those who came in asking why we're so salty, talking about how, blaming us for things that we weren't even old enough to do and we weren't the cause of. I think the whole we're just trying to survive, man, because the world really wasn't looking out for us vibe is what Gen X is. And I just want you to know that if you're Gen X, if you are between those ages of, I believe, I would say 40 and up, and it's not to say that some of you later millennials can't join us either. But I say anybody 40 and up right now, I see you. I know that life has kicked us in the ass, but we just keep going because life is kicking everybody in the ass. We just don't feel like constantly harping on that. And we just unpack our damage in other ways. But I'm going to wrap this up. I will be back next week with another mental health vlog. I really think putting a human face on this stuff helps. I think that those with especially schizoaffective disorder are constantly worried because we're always classified as either super violent or super weird, and I will own up to being super weird. But I get annoyed that people only want to talk about schizophrenia or bipolar disorder when bad stuff happens. And I want people to see somebody with this disorder that can A, talk, B, just show the human side of this without having a bunch of the fucking baggage that most people who claim mental health on this app do. But like I said, I will be back next week. Thank you to everybody who has been tuning into these. Thank you to those who have been sharing these on social media. Just thank you to everybody who allows me the ability to talk openly about mental health and about things that I'm going through in this life. I appreciate y'all, and I will see you again next week.